Hello, thank you for joining me once again on Shingeki Day for episode 13 of season 4. Actually, before I go any further, at the time of recording this, I now know that they have confirmed a part 2 for season 4. And yeah, it's going to be an episodic format, so, great news, brilliant news. And given the fact that it's this massive property, right, this cultural phenomenon in its final season, right, the conclusion of the story, it's understandable that there was talk of it potentially being films to end the series. But of course, I'm quite happy that it is in episodic format. And after a couple years of trying this, I'll finally actually get to watch alongside everyone else. I'll be on the same page day one on that Sunday. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch Shingeki as it airs, or on the day it airs. And that's a damn good thought. That's a damn good feeling. So that's just such an exciting prospect. And, it's just in time for the final season, or part 2 of the final season. So, it's great timing, I suppose, even though, I tried in the past, but just kind of missed it. And, I was just a few episodes behind for this as well. But, I'll be there. I'll be there day one on that Sunday as episode 17 airs. So yeah, it'll be really exciting to be part of that, to be part of this final phase of Shingeki. I am planning on taking a bit of a break. Before I go any further, it's not going to be a long break, at most 7 to 8 days. It's a bit of a necessary pit stop. I haven't really announced that at the time of recording this, so certainly check out the pinned comment. By the time this goes up, I should have a bit more, information about that in the pinned comment. So yeah, it's a bit of a necessary pit stop. A few things have piled up. It's been a strong 5 months, a solid 5 months of consistency, consistent content. But yeah, a few things kind of piled up, or slowly kind of piled up in those 5 months. Things I need to take care of, the physical space I record in, I need to switch some things out. There's a few other issues that I need to address that I can't really put off anymore. All content related, essentially. But yeah, it's just going to be a 7 to 8 day break. And then, hopefully that is going to ensure that it's going to be another 5 months of consistent content, a solid 5 months and beyond. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. It'll be in the pinned comment. As always, if you are interested in early access to episode 14 or full length to episode 13, consider checking out the Patreon page. Once again, it's only an option for anyone who's interested in content beyond the scheduled content. Oh, and in terms of content, there are a few new additions planned, so, keep an eye out for that as well. But yeah, if you are interested, check out the Patreon page. Links in the description and the pinned comment. Right then, that's about it for this intro. Let's get into the episode. Thank you once again for joining me, and thank you for your time. So I hope you enjoy. Whoa. Some sort of flashback? Oh, is this Kaya's village? Sasha ran on that, right? Oh my god, is this? Holy shit! There it is, spinal fluid. That's the guy! The big eyes! Oh my god! So he... Oh. Connie's mom? Connie's dad?
俺だって避けたかったさ。だが、やらなければ俺の真意がエルディア復権にあるとバレて、この島に希望をもたらすことは叶わなかっただろう。わかるさ。モテたことくらい。
I bet he was.
何？それは本当なのか？
Great shot. Now, notice the green tint of that flashback. That was new. And Grisha told Heicho that he's told them this story a few times already. Now he said the moment they come in contact, or the moment the gas hit them, they freeze up. Now I'm like 99% sure the bottles have been laced. Now I got confirmation. His own spinal fluid is kind of, sprinkled in there, or not sprinkled, but you know what I mean. Yet all the people drinking that are not freezing up. So something's going on here. Disinformation. It's not lining up. Wow, but they finally gave me season 2. It's one of those unanswered mysteries, right? Is this new? It is. Huh. Children of the Forest. Y'all fixing to eat?
どげんしたかみや。ケソケソしてから。
いや、緊張し
Zeke Yeager.
まったくどこの田舎から出てきたんだよ。
ありがとうね。
Browse.
これはまた賑やかな人数ですね。
一緒に暮らす
Look at that.
せっかくただなんやし。
Of course, of course.
いえ、今日はお任せください。さあ、どうぞ。
This is so wholesome. This is Shingeki though.
ブラウスさんは兵士でもないのになんでここに招待されたの？
お姉ちゃんはブラウスさんの娘で兵士だったの。私、二人が恋人同士だったと思ってるけどね。
Oh, did Falco just clock it?
どうした？腹でも痛いんか？
Yeah, he's thinking about it, right?
こんな部屋があったんだ。
Hey.
どうせ憲兵さん
Oh, great shot.
これは兵団内で噂のワインか。
Oh, Jean.
なんでも上官たちしか飲めねえって話らしいけど。
なんだと？俺たちも調査兵
No,
団
no,
じゃ
no, no,
長
no,
官
no,
だ
no,
ろ
no, no.
ああ、ちょっとぐらい。
語り触るな。
なんだよニコロ。ちょっと
Oh, tall, man.
大げさだな、おい。
Yeah.
これはエルディア人にはもったいない代物なんだよ。ニコロ、お前まだそんなこと言ってんのか。触んなエルディア人。
Oh, Niccolo.
ちょっと親しくしたぐらいで。そういうてめえは何様なんだよ。お前の立場は。捕虜の分際でってか。これでおあいこだな。
Jean had a moment there.
どうしたんだあいつ。
Wow.
私たちはマーレから来ました。戦士候補
Oh
生で
my
す。
god.
この島にはもうじき世界中の軍隊からなる。
ちょっと待ってくれ。
ちょっと
どう
待って。
して戦士候補生がここにいるんだ。
私たちは退却する敵の飛行船に飛び乗ったままこの
Oh
島
no
に
no
上
no
陸し
no
ま
no
した。
no no! It's going there.
誰か殺したか。女の兵士を。
はい。
Falco
調べ
knows.
ました。ですがまだ数匹駆除した程度。私たちの故郷を駐輪した報復はこれからです。私たちは卑怯な悪魔どもには
She's so excited to see Marlene though. Look at her.
殺したのか。お前がサシャを殺したのか。
Off. That's the bottle he took.
ファルコ。ねえ、ファルコ。
Wow.
ファルコ。
Fuck, man.
ファルコ。
Oh.
待って。ねえってば。ファルコ。
あなたの娘さんの命を奪いま
Whoa.
した。
Niccolo's.
まだガキですが、厳しく訓練されたマーレの兵士です。
娘。
ブラウスさん、どうぞ。あなたが殺さないなら俺が殺しますが、構いませんね。
お前何しようとしてんだ。おい、やるな。それ。
Come on, man. Leave Falco alone.
そこ動くな。お前をかばってこうなってるな。お前の大事な人が、俺にも大事な人がいた。エルディア人だ。悪魔の末裔だ。だが彼女は誰よりも俺の料理をうまさまに食った。このクソみたいな戦争から俺を救ってくれたんだ。人を喜ばせる料理を作るのが本当の俺なんだと教えてくれた。それがサシャ・ブラウス。 お前に奪われた彼女の名前だ。知るかよ、どっちが先とか。
目を覚まして。あなたはマーレの兵士でしょ。きっとその悪魔の女に惑わされてる。悪魔なんかに負けないで。
包丁を渡しなさい。
Get the knife. Get the knife from him.
さあ
He's not gonna do anything to you.
サシャは狩人やった。
はい。
5名頃から弓を教えて森で獣をいて殺して食うてきた。それが俺らの生き方やったからや。けど同じ生き方が続けられん時代が来ることは分かっとったからサシャを森から外に生かした。兵士になったサシャはよその土地に攻め入り人を撃ち人に撃たれた。結局森を出たつもりが世界は命に奪い合いを続ける巨大な森の中やったんや。せめて子供たちはこの森から出してやらんと
The
いかん。
youngins out of the forest.
そうやないとまた同じところをぐるぐる回るだけやろう。だから過去の罪や憎しみを背負うんは我々大人の
Mr. Browse.
怪我を見せて。
ミヤ
Wow, that was amazing.
大丈夫か。
本当に私が憎くない。
Oh yeah, she just found out as well.
隣の部屋へ。さあ。
A moment of reflection. But let it out.
すっかりメインが冷めちまったな。
Wow, this episode.
ハンジさん、そのガキの口を
Oh
ゆすいで
yeah,
や
oh
っ
my
てから
god.
あのワインが入っちまった。
え？
もう手遅れだと思うけど。
あのワイン。
These tied music,
何が
the
入ってい
theme.
多分ジークの脊髄液だ。
今壁内は実質的にイエーガー派によって支配されています。イエーガー派の要求通りエレンをジークの
Oh
元まで
man.
案内する手はずとなっています。
Hicho and Eren.
ピクシスがエレンの命を何度も救った。その度に何人もの仲間が死んだ。それが人類が生き残る希望だと信じて、そう信じた結果がこ
Oh
のざまだ。
man.
俺たちが見てた希望ってのは一体何だったんだ。あの死闘の結果がこの茶番だと巨人に食わせるべきクソ野郎は他にいる。
They're humanizing the soldiers though. So much screen time.
このワインを兵団組織高官らに優先して振る舞う。
High-ranking officers.
誰からだ。
Jean said earlier.
でもおかしいだろう。ジークの脊髄液を飲んだエルディア人は
He lied.
硬直するんだろう。ジークがそう言っただけだ。誰もその現場を見たわけじゃないか
Yeah.
ら。
I think that's why the coloring was kind of green.
たった一
There
言
it
で
is.
済むその
It wasn't really an actual flashback, was it?
硬直という前兆が見られなければ脊髄液を盛られたという発想すらしない。
マーレは敵国の首都を一晩で
Looks like
落と
Middle
した。
East.
何百もの巨人が街中に湧いて出たから
Yeah. They really like going after Middle Eastern countries, don't they, Marley?
お前、さっき俺からあのワインを取り上げたのは俺たちを守るためか。
さあ何をやってんだろうな俺は。あなたみたいにはまだ俺はなれないけど、これがせめてもの償いになれば。
Mr. Browse,
子供
incredible.
を殺すなんてどうかしてました。
Anger, man. Anger can get the best of you. Moment of madness.
ニカル君、
Niccolo Kun.
あんたたちの大切な仲間を殺したのは私。
She's
監視を石で
expecting
めった打ちに
punishment.
したのも私。ファルコは違うから。殺すのは私だけでいいでしょ。私を殺したくて仕方ないんでしょ。殺したくないよ。
Come on,
殺す
Gabby.
殺すって
Take it
君
in.
はそればっかりだね。誰かとそっくりだ。
Yeah. He just walks right in. Speak of the devil, right?
あなたはジークの居場所を知っているはずです。そこまでに
Ah,
注意して
yeah.
もらいます。
いや、我々は君たちと争うつもりはないんだが。
聞けば何でも答えてくれるほどの親切な部下に見えますか。それか、あなたの部下ではないと示すべきでしょうか。
He'll do it too.
そうなる前にご同行を。
くそ、なんで俺たちがここにいることが。クリス、
Ah.
まさかお前がイエレナの差し金か。
我々はジークの計画に踊らされているんだよ。
だとしても、バカな憲兵どもがでかいバカになるだけでしょ。もういいですか。
憲兵団が飲まされたとは言って
He
ない。
knows.
まさかあんたたちワインのこと知ってたの。
Jesus.
店内ではお静かに。
Oh, this dude is just. His personality's changed a bit, hasn't it? Oh, Gabby's there too. Oh, hands on the table.
お前らと話が
He
した
looks so sad though. Look at him. Whoa. That's one of the best episodes of the season, easily. Man, Mr. Browse, though, man. Incredible. Right then. That is quite the ending for episode 13. So it appears I am finally getting the talk, right? I was hoping it would happen in the last episode, but Zachary turned it down. You know, I was hoping to get to go down to the jail cell and try to talk with Eren, right? See how things play out. That didn't happen, right? But now it's happening. It's happening. And it's going to happen in a different capacity, right? And under really different and interesting circumstances, for sure. And, you know, the fact that it's going to be in episode 14, right? 2 episodes before the season finale, right? Part 1 at least. It's a big thing. It's a big moment that's being set up here at the end of the episode. I mean, this certainly has the potential to be a pivotal moment in the story and, you know, in the relationship of these 3 individuals, right? I don't know how many more chances these 3 are going to get, you know, to speak again. So yeah, you know, this is a big moment, and it felt like it. It certainly felt like that. Now, nothing about the setup really makes me feel like it's going to be a particularly happy or joyous occasion. You know, it doesn't feel like it's going to be a heart-to-heart. And the fact that he asked them to place their hands on the table, and, you know, walked in and flashed the cut as the first thing, it already has this specific tone, doesn't it? It already kind of felt like a tense moment. And, you know, his demeanor, his presence, the control of the situation, it all plays a part into this, right? I mean, it certainly communicates a lot of things to Armin and Mikasa already, right? And the fact that Eren felt the need to use that route, you know, to flash that cut. I mean, I think it's safe to assume that this might not be a pleasant situation at all. And, you know, more so than Armin, I think this might be a difficult situation for Mikasa, depending on how it plays out. It might not be a pleasant situation at all for Mikasa, given her, you know, attachment to Eren. Now, all of that being said, I don't think for a second that Eren would actually transform and potentially, you know, hurt Armin and Mikasa substantially. But he has made the choice to show them that he could do this, right? Though I don't think he would. I just don't think he would actually transform and harm them in that manner and, you know, put them in that situation. But he cares for them, right? He still cares for them. But he has a path, and he simply must continue on that path. And, you know, in episode 10, they even established that Eren now has quite a bit of control over his Titan transformation, right? As those sparks start flying as he pulls Hanji close. Yet, you know, he's using this approach to show that, oh, look, I mean, he's certainly trying to present that he would do it. if they don't behave, perhaps. Now, I mentioned in the last episode that Eren has embraced this role, right? It was a definitive moment. There's no turning back. Like I said, it was a monumental moment for the story. Eren's trek, iconic moment. Lesser actions cannot restore the balance of life as far as Eren is concerned. Now, the question is, does Eren actually want to open up to them for a bit, right? Does he actually want to open up to them a bit before he starts putting things into motion? Or does he just want to distance himself, right, from them and doesn't want them to be a part of his plans? He doesn't want them to be dragged into this, perhaps, right? The less you know, the better type situation. I brought up that Harry Potter and Dumbledore example from the Order of the Phoenix, right? Being standoffish, avoiding him, not making himself available, right? Ultimately, in an attempt to protect Harry. That type of thing could happen here as well, right? At no point have I thought that Eren does not care for Armin and Mikasa anymore, even though, he's a bit of a puzzle at the moment, right? Especially since they haven't really given us his inner monologue or things from his perspective. Now, I felt that the final shot of the episode, the final shot of Eren, I felt that it was quite telling. This is a detached individual at this point. You see that there is some element of sorrow even in that expression. Some semblance of pain, maybe, right? And you see his eyes. There's sadness there, right? For sure. You can see that he doesn't take any gratification from this situation. And in that sense, there's quite the contrast to his right-hand man, right? His second in command, essentially, at this point, Flock, who has fully embraced and grown into this role. He's enjoying his role in all of this. And, you could tell he's relishing it. He certainly enjoyed being condescending towards the scouts and Hanji-san, right? He actually became quite abrasive. I mean, it's in line with the trajectory he's been on, right? Since surviving that suicide charge. I mean, it's quite clear this is a changed individual, right? And he'll never allow himself to be that version of Flock ever again. Never. Though I must say, I was a bit surprised by some of his demeanor, some of his antics. There's a bit of a personality change, right? And is this because of the position he's in now? Or, I don't know, it's certainly changing. I feel like he certainly harbors a lot of resentment. And he's certainly prepared to resort to violence at a moment's notice. Swift and definitive. Just like the devil he wanted to follow, right? Someone who is pragmatic and able to make tough calls. Ready to make sacrifices for the greater good. The Eldian Empire in this case. I mean, it's quite the ascendancy, isn't it? From that naive, petrified recruit squatting and, cupping his ears as the Beast Titan's debris is just launching in, right? I'll never forget that moment. He's on the floor, like in a squat position, and he's just, trying to block out the noise by cupping his ears. And yeah, I mean, that voice acting was just brilliant. It really sold that moment, that terror of being there, being out there as this is happening around them. But look at him now, right? He's essentially this Messiah's right-hand man, second in command. Essentially, he's in control of the Jaegerists, right? He's the leader of the Jaegerist group. And then, of course, they follow Eren. I've always maintained that I enjoy Flock's role in this, so I'm still interested to see how his role plays out and how it develops as the story heads towards its conclusion. I mean, I could see how it's going to play out, given his attitude, especially in this episode. I could see how his character might progress from this point on and the things he might do, right, or is capable of doing. So yeah, let's see. I still think he's necessary. I think this Jaegerist group is necessary in the story, right, to provide that perspective, to give voice to that, group of people inside Paradis. Right, and it's not just a small group. Clearly, it's quite a substantial group, a faction. So yeah, it is important to have this. Right then, let's go to the beginning of the episode. Right, top of the episode. Now I finally get something that has been one of the longest running mysteries, unanswered mysteries of the story, right? Since season 2. How did Zeke manage to do this to an entire village, right? On his own? That was a big question, right? How did he manage this just by himself? And it was such a head scratcher this whole time because I did think, or I assumed, he was by himself. But no, turns out he had quite a bit of help actually. He had a battalion of these Marleyan soldiers assisting him, sending in this gas, and, this compound had his spinal fluid in there, right? In that gas. And of course, Peak-chan is there as well. Now it looks like after they did that, after they sent in the gas and Zeke had his new, battalion of Titans, right? I think the Marleyan soldiers left at that point. So it appears that Peak might have stayed there. Though, of course, they didn't really show her for any part of season 2 at all, right? But it appears that she might have stayed behind. And that maybe she was at Utgard Castle as well, alongside Zeke. And, because of that, a lot of cool things started coming into the story, right? The can of herring, that was a big deal. Yeah, that was a big deal back then. So yeah, it appears that Peak, she stayed that whole time, right? But the Marleyan soldiers left after doing their thing, right? After playing their part in releasing the gas. But, one of the things that was clear in season 2 is that, Zeke, the Beast Titan, and his Titans kind of moved together, right? He commanded them. That was a thing. And, they ended up at Utgard Castle. But let's get to the actual flashback itself. It opened up the episode. Now, the first thing that was quite noticeable is the green tone or the tint, the greenish tint they had for this flashback, and just seeing it presented in that manner, having that type of presentation for a flashback and having this green tint, right, or this greenish tone to it, that already kind of made things seem a bit off, didn't it? It certainly felt a bit off to me. I feel like that was deliberate, given the fact that there's certainly more than meets the eye in terms of that scene, that flashback, because it wasn't actually a legitimate flashback. It was more so Zeke's modified explanation being visualized, right? I mean, most of that flashback is legitimate, and it finally does give us some answers, or it gives us the answer to one of the unsolved mysteries, right? But Zeke said that breathing just a slight amount makes subjects of Ymir freeze up, right? And that's the reason I'm saying that it wasn't completely legitimate, right? It's Zeke's modified version of it. That part was clearly disinformation, right? And that's usually a common tool of espionage. False information, deliberately misleading. And of course, that's a crucial part, that he is kind of cooking the books a bit, right? And immediately that goes back to Pixis from the last episode, right? Do you know how to tell a good lie? Sometimes you've got to mix the truth into it. And as Hanji noted in the conclusion of the episode, it ended up being quite effective, right? Enormously effective. And that could land him in a lot of trouble. Now let's get to the actual process, right? Zeke's scream, the Titan turning process, and the Titan command abilities that Zeke possesses, right? So once a subject of Ymir has traces of his spinal fluid in their systems, Zeke becomes connected to all of them, right? And then on his command, right? This is the really fascinating bit. He sends the power of the Titans to the coordinate through a path connected to each person, right? Subjects of Ymir with spinal fluid, right? With his spinal fluid. And of course, they set that up back in season 3, episode 21, right? Attack Titan. The blood and bones that form a Titan can be sent through these paths, right? And of course, it stays dormant until Zeke initiates the process, right? And the process is initiated by his scream. So distance doesn't matter, right? Because once they have the fluid in them, if a subject of Ymir has his Titan fluid in their system, they're marked, right? They're marked, and he essentially finds them or returns them or sends the power of the Titans, the flesh and bones, through a path that connects him to them, right? They're marked. So in the context of the current situation, it's essentially a ticking time bomb, right? I believe I mentioned this in my episode 10 discussion. Now, Niccolo confirmed that Yelena told him to serve it to high-ranking officers, right? So that does narrow it down to a select group. And, in that sense, it's kind of reminiscent of how Commander Magath and Lord Tiber set things up, right? In the Liberio Festival. The entire backbone of the Marley military was kind of presented in a nice little package for the imminent attack, right? Because they required a full-scale demolition, right? To get rid of the higher-ups and start once again. Now you see that Zeke and Yelena here have targeted high-ranking officers here on Paradis. But that's just within the city, right? Out there in the forest of the giant trees, a good chunk of the 30 soldiers have it in their system as well at this point. I think that side of things is a bit different. I don't think these soldiers are going to be used in any negotiating tactics by Zeke or Yelena. I'm pretty confident that he's going to turn a lot of those soldiers into Titans, his Titans to be more specific, the ones he can command and control. For the most part, there's cases, as shown in Season 2, Episode 1, that sometimes they don't completely obey. And yeah, I do think Heicho is going to have to fight them. These men that are under his command, right, they're going to turn. And, it might not just be Heicho by himself, because it's still kind of up in the air if every single one of those soldiers has taken the drinks, right, or have it in their system at this point. It's possible that, a handful of soldiers might not turn alongside Heicho. But again, it's tough to know. It's kind of impossible to know if all of them have, taken those drinks. Now, in terms of Heicho, I do know that he enjoys tea. I love the way he holds his teacups, how he grips the teacup itself. I've seen it back in Season 1 as, OG Levi Squad is around that table alongside Eren and he's having his tea. And then, of course, him and Hanji, right, they go to the journalists from time to time and have a sit down and you see him holding his teacup like that. As a hypothetical, say Heicho does have some of it in his system at this point, that he does have some of Zeke's spinal fluid in his system. He is half Eldian, right? He's Ackerman from his mother's side, but, his father's side, it's unknown. It's just some random Eldian that might be his father. So does that mean he could actually turn into pure Titan? Jean, in that train cart, he told Mikasa, there's still so much unknown about the Ackerman. So yeah, it's still up in the air if Ackerman can turn into pure Titans, right? That remains to be seen. Now, that being said, I don't think for a second that Levi's story could potentially conclude in that manner. I just don't think so. Turning into a pure Titan in the forest of the giant trees, and that's a wrap on his story, I just don't think so. He's too big of a character, too major of a character to go out like that. In my opinion, at least. Even in episode 10, the final scene, my first thought was that Heicho might have to face and fight a sudden outbreak of pure Titans. That's the thing that made it so terrifying. That whole, situation, that whole possibility. I didn't even think of, Heicho turning into a Titan. Now, I brought up that hypothetical here in this discussion, but, the reason I was so terrified of that situation is because Heicho potentially, being in the middle of a Titan outbreak. I feel like that's a direction it's set up for, or potentially heading into. And you see that even in this episode, they try to humanize a couple of those soldiers, right? As they're speaking with Heicho up top on those tree branches. And that was kind of reminiscent of Season 1 again, right? As the new recruits, the 104th, are also up top on those branches. But there is a high-ranking official who could actually be on the chopping block. Pixis. Because I think there's every chance he might have been to that restaurant at some point for a meal and was served from that batch, right, specified for high-ranking officials. And they certainly set up some time ago that Pixis likes a drink, right? He likes a drink. He enjoys a drink. I still remember from season 2 as he's on top of the wall, right? And he gets smacked in the head. And the first thing he does is he grabs that bottle and takes a swig. So he certainly enjoys a drink. They set that up a long time ago. And in this episode, they set up through Jean that all the soldiers are gossiping about this wine that is only available to high-ranking officials. So yeah, that is certainly a sad prospect that Pixis could turn into pure Titan as well. Is this the reason Yelena had that look during that episode, episode 9, as the garrison members have their guns pointed at Yelena and the others, right? Is this the reason she had that look on her face and she said they'll dine at the same table once again at some point? And in season 2 they did set up that he used to have this, or he still might. They just didn't, he just doesn't really bring that up anymore. But he had this fascination, right? This kind of kinky fascination with the Titans. So imagine if he turns into a pure Titan himself in the end, and that's how he goes out. Yeah, it's a sad prospect, but it's one that is, I think it is likely. It is likely, and it sucks. It sucks. Now, circling back to Zeke and his scream, so he actually has some similarities to the founding Titan, right? On a much smaller scale, perhaps. The subjects Ymir, with his spinal fluid, become connected to him, right? So as a Titan shifter of royal blood, he certainly, possesses quite an immense capacity, right? And, that much has been established. That much is clear. Even Marley, knows this much, but they don't know it's because of his royal blood. But they do know there is something special about Zeke's Beast Titan, right? That no Beast Titan before him has had this kind of capability or capacity. And this is a substantial moment because a major character from the story is actually speaking of and utilizing the concept they set up back in season 3, episode 21. The Attack Titan, right? Or Attack Titan. I go back to that episode a lot. It's an important one. It's an important episode. He's been utilizing it for some time now, right? As Nicolo also mentioned later on, they've been using, or Marleyan soldiers know all about this technique. But this is the first time a character is actually shown to have made use of this knowingly, right? Or spoke of this and has an understanding of it and is able to tap into it, right? The concept they brought up in that episode in Attack Titan. Now, much of the focus has been on Eren, right? Because he is the current holder of the founding Titan, right? Let's get the two Jaeger brothers together so Eren can once again tap into the full capacity of the founding Titan, much like he did back in the season 2 finale as he came in contact with Zeke Jaeger's mother, right? Dinah Fritz. But how about Zeke? How about Zeke Jaeger? How are things going to play out for Zeke once he makes contact with Eren, right? Yes, the onus is on Eren because he is, he's the one who kind of gets, the final call on things, perhaps, as the holder of the founding Titan. But, I'm interested in how things play out for Zeke once he makes contact with Eren, right? Surely, as a royal Titan holder, something might happen for him as well, Surely he'll experience something special as well. And I just spoke of season 3, episode 21, and Eren speaking of the possibilities, right? That is one of the biggest remaining mysteries, or one of the mysteries set up late on, right, in season 3. At times, even memories and thoughts are sent through these paths. That aspect is definitely going to come into play at some point of the story, right? Surely, of course. And they didn't say, Eren didn't specify at that moment in time that just the founding Titan could potentially do these types of things. They showed me in this episode, they confirmed in this episode that Zeke is able to utilize those things they set up in that episode, in episode 21, right, from season 3, that he is able to tap into this. And he's been doing it for some time as well, right? This isn't something new for him, but it is new for the audience. As this is the first time they confirm it That this is how he makes them or turns them into titans, right? Sends the blood and bones that make up a titan. Now the question becomes, is this the full extent of the things he can do, right? Or can experience? And could something become possible for him as well once him and Eren come into contact? So yeah, let's put a pin in that and let's see how it plays out. Because sooner or later, the Jaeger brothers are going to come into contact, right? Sooner or later, it is going to happen. And I am quite excited to see how things could play out for Zeke once that does happen. Yes, the focus is on Eren in that situation because he possesses the founding titan, but, I'm not going to overlook that Zeke is a titan of royal blood, right? A titan shifter of royal blood. Now you see that Heicho makes sure to remind Zeke, or he makes sure to not let Zeke forget the lives he's taken, right, here on Paradis. He specifically mentions Ragako, right, Connie's village, but there's also the Battle of Shiganshina, as Zeke did decimate a large portion of the scouts. Actually, he decimated a majority of the scouts. Only a handful of them came back from that, right? But I actually believe Zeke. I really believe him, as he said, I didn't want to do it. But he did those kind of things so he could maintain his standing and devotion to Marley, right? In that sense, it's quite similar to the owl, right? In the actions of the owl, staying undercover for years and having to do some terrible things, and those things certainly played a part. They certainly had an effect on the owl, on Kruger, by the end of it. But then, that being said, I also agree with Heicho that Zeke doesn't really have guilt about Ragako and the Battle of Shiganshina and all the lives he took. In that sense, it kind of reminds me of Annie, right? You see that even though she struggled quite a bit with having to kill people she knows about, right? The Marco incident's the one that really sticks out the most. But she was able to kind of step back and detach herself from that aspect of it, right? And not get close to anyone else. As, she had no problem killing a lot of scouts, right? Beginning with Season 1, Episode 17, the female Titan, right? And I suppose that was a female Titan arc, right? The things that followed in episode 18 and 19, she ruthlessly killed a lot of scouts. As dark as it might have been, she was able to kind of step back and detach that aspect. So I think it might be similar for Zeke as well in that sense, a coping mechanism, right? But you see that in The Perfect Game, right? Season 3, episode 16, Zeke had a moment, right? As those scouts are charging at him, right? You see that it kind of looked like he had some sympathy for them, right? Sympathy in the sense that he felt that it's a tragedy that King Rice stole their memories, right? And, in that moment, he kind of had to catch himself, right? And tell himself to enjoy things, right? And not get attached to the situation, right? Or detach himself from that situation. Essentially, I think he looks at them as necessary sacrifices, right? For the greater good. So I certainly think he wants to make things happen for Eldians, right? As a whole. But he was clearly ready to end Eldian lives in the process. And he still plans on it. He's still ready to do that, right? Because I just spoke of how he essentially has the higher-ups at his mercy, right? And many of the soldiers in the forest as well. So those are Eldian lives he's ready to take or, sacrifice. But then on that note, his reply to Heicho was quite interesting, right? You think you know everyone's feelings. Essentially there's still quite a bit that is unknown about Zeke. A lot of things about him are still shrouded in mystery, right? I still need a backstory. For Zeke. And Isayama-san has shown time and time again how his backstories recontextualize characters and their motives and the trajectories, right? I'm a big fan of this character. I really am. And he certainly climbed the ladder, really high on my list. And I'm really anticipating how his character arc plays out. Now let's get into the centerpiece of this episode. Gabby, Falco, Niccolo, Mr. Browse, all of that, right? So essentially this picked up right after episode 11, right? The continuation of that plot point. Though, of course, they set up this restaurant moment or this restaurant scene in the conclusion of the last episode as well, right? The cliffhanger, the fantastic setup in the conclusion of the last episode. And yeah, it certainly played out in a grand manner. And, like I just said, it is certainly the centerpiece of this phenomenal episode. Effectively making it one of the best episodes of the season, easily. And notice how, once again, something of this caliber, emotionally resonant and thematically relevant to the ideas of this story, it did not require main characters. Sasha's father, Mr. Browse, he easily goes into that limited appearance character Hall of Fame. It includes characters such as Yuri, Kenny, Shadis, even I'm forgetting his name right now, Rodrice. I mean, even in season 2, episode 2, in his first appearance, just then and there, it was clear the type of understanding this man has, right? Even from, that point on, I had so much respect for that character. And then, of course, I saw him again in episode 9 this season, and it was such an exciting moment to see him again. But, this man's perspective and wisdom is so integral, right? In that high-tension situation. He's this hidden gem, isn't he? Who has a better understanding than most of these higher-ranking officers, right? These people in positions of power. This segment, this scene, or this centerpiece of the episode, it was essentially this microcosm of this conflict, right? This cycle of hate, sins of the ancestors, sins of the parents, protecting children from the burdens of these sins, right? Ending the retaliation breeds retaliation cycle. And, it's incredible that a character who was supposed to die back in season 2, episode 2, right, ended up having such a substantial impact and relevance in these character arcs and the plot, and I'm speaking of Sasha. She was supposed to die back then, right, in season 2, episode 2, but Isayama-san, he is brilliant, isn't he? Like I mentioned before, Mr. Browse, Sasha's father, he is a brilliant impact character of this story, right? He enables and empowers character growth and change. And it looks like he might end up being the pivot around Gabby's character arc, right? And there's signs in this episode that Gabby is finally starting to let go and loosen that stranglehold she has on these beliefs, right? This whole time. And there's a lot for Gabby to process here, right? She's actually... you see that she's in a state of shock after a few things that happened. The man who has been so nice, so hospitable, so caring, ends up being the father of the person she killed. Yet he does not hate her. In fact, he's shown her more kindness than any Marlene outside of Liberio, right? This is the most kindness anyone has shown her, other than, people she knows in Liberio. And other Eldians within Liberio. And, I felt that she was even kind of relieved that Sasha's father doesn't hate her because, she posed that question. You really don't hate me? Even after all this? Even after, I ended up killing your daughter? I felt that there was some relief there, that she didn't want to be hated by this man. But then, going back to a lot of things that she has to process, the Marleyan soldier she is so happy to see and confide in tried to kill her, right? And is trying to avenge one of the island devils. And Falco gets really hurt in the process, right? She's expecting harsh and perhaps deserved punishment for her actions. And of course, this is in her opinion and understanding of the situation and her actions. Yet Mikasa and Armin, Eldian soldiers, show no signs of, wanting to retaliate or punishing her for her actions. So, even that has her a bit, confused. Now, to me, this felt like the third act of Gabby's character arc. The truth is rising and the lie is setting, right? But I feel like the ascendancy of the truth isn't yet absolute, right? She might continue to experience doubts as she begins to adjust to her new paradigm, right? there's still a lot of complex emotions she needs to sort through, right? Given the things she's just experienced in that restaurant. I feel that there might be a final test that might come in the climax of this character arc. Though she also finds herself at the table by the end of the episode, right? And Eren Yeager is sitting at that table. He's sitting right there. So things can get quite interesting here, right? For sure. Listening in on this conversation that's about to happen. But circling back to Mr. Browse, you see the concern and pity on his face for this child, Gabby, as she's going on about not losing to the devils and the devil woman bewitched you, Niccolo, right? He recognizes that this kid needs help, right? You can see he must be thinking about the stuff she's been through and other children just like her, right? And that's a sad part about this, right? And he sees this. He sees that she needs some time. She needs help, right? She needs understanding. And of course, his wife, Mrs. Browse, also had a similar reaction to this. That moment of Mr. Browse speaking of keeping the youngins out of the forest, right? And it being up to the adults to shoulder the sins of the past, that is so important. So important. All her life, Gabby has known one thing, that they must atone for the sins of their ancestors, right? And she really bought into that. Again, her family plays a part in this as well, right? She's from that family, the family that really bought into all of this, that they must take responsibility and that the guilt passes on to them, right? And the heartbreaking thing is that she's always truly believed that if the Island Devils are defeated, right, and the sins have been atoned for, us good Eldians can separate ourselves, right, from the stigma and bad reputation. But that is just not going to happen. That's never going to happen, right? That is a reality that just does not exist, right? Yet she has devoted her life to this cause, this, guilt-ridden manipulation by Marley, a chance to attain freedom and forgiveness, right? Through your actions, right? Through atonement. So, it was such an important moment that she gets to hear things Mr. Browse is saying here, right? And another sad moment, but a necessary one for Gabby's character arc, is that she seeks positive affirmation through Niccolo, a Marleyan soldier. You see how relieved she is, even excited to finally come across a Marleyan soldier, right? As expected. She's had a strange old time out here, right? And just recently, her world has been turned upside down. It's been flipped upside down. Nothing seems to be in line with her understanding of things. But the one thing that she knows is going to give her some reassurance, right, is her tether to the thought process, a Marleyan soldier, who's surely going to reaffirm that I'm doing the right thing, right, and I'm a good Eldian. So she's so conditioned that the moment Niccolo asked about them potentially killing someone, right, she immediately gets excited because in her mind, there is only one possible reason a Marleyan soldier is going to ask that of her. She immediately blurts out the things she's accomplished, right? Because she is used to getting approval and positive affirmations for her deeds, right? You go back to that dinner table scene in episode 2, right? You see the whole family is proud of her, but not from this Marleyan. She's not going to get that positive affirmation from this Marleyan. No, this Marleyan has had his world flipped upside down as well. This Marleyan has had life-altering, eye-opening experiences, right? And the special person was taken from him, right? That special person was taken from him, from his life, right? The person responsible for, giving him these life-altering changes. And you see just how much Sasha meant to him, right? How much she was responsible for. A dramatic shift in perspective. A dramatic shift in his perspective. He said, she saved me from the shitty-ass war, right? Man. And he's so enraged that, the moment he sees Gabby doesn't want Falco to be harmed or hurt, he then takes that opportunity to take someone from her, right? To inflict that same type of pain, that same type of hurt on Gabby, to take someone she cares for away from her. And of course, before that moment, he swung a bottle right at Gabby, right? He had every intention to hurt and perhaps kill her. But, Falco jumped in. He jumped right in front of that. Of course, sweet old selfless Falco, protective Falco jumped right in. But then, Sasha's father, Mr. Browse, was able to get through to Niccolo, right? He de-escalated the situation and allowed Niccolo to regain his composure, right? After having a moment of madness, right? And anger can do that. Anger can trigger the body's fight or flight response. And Niccolo-kun certainly had a moment, right? And how about that voice acting, though? Niccolo's voice actor, Kaya's voice acting, Gabby's voice acting once again, and even the soothing and reassuring nature of Mr. Browse's voice acting, right? It was so effective here. It really was. I think a lot of credit goes to the voice acting for Mr. Browse, for sure. Wonderfully written character, that's for sure. But I think the voice acting really, kind of brings it all together. And even Niccolo is such a fantastic limited appearance character, right? There's been such a great character arc in such a short amount of time, such a short amount of screen time. And you see the results of the definitive change as he snatches the bottle from Jean. Of course, later Jean finds out the reasoning for that strange behavior, right? He was looking out for them. He saved them, essentially. Or he saved them from any potential accidents, right? But in that moment, he resorts to that hateful, prejudiced approach to cover it up, right? And you see that even Jean-Boy is susceptible to that behavior, right? And that he had to catch himself and realize what he was doing in that moment. And that really felt like such a realistic moment, didn't it? All of us have had moments like that, right? In the heat of the moment, sometimes, you slip up, right? Sometimes people say things or start to go towards an angle that then they almost immediately realize, oh, no, okay, never mind. I need to catch myself. I need to reel myself back in, right? I felt that was such a realistic moment. And then, there's that really powerful moment as Armin and Mikasa remove Gabby from that area, right? Remove her from that situation. And then the Browse family has this really emotional, right, and beautiful cathartic moment with each other as they mourn Sasha and how things have just kind of played out here, right? And it cuts to that shot of Gabby having a moment of reflection in the hall, right? And I love the framing of that shot. Gabby's framed to the right side of the frame, and you see a lot of empty space on the left side. And in that moment of reflection, surely she's tackling emotions, so many emotions, right? Swimming in her mind at the moment, swimming in her head, and thinking about her actions and the effects of her actions, right? And seeing it firsthand, how it's affected so many people. Now then, let's circle back to Falco. Man, this kid is such a compassionate and intelligent person, right? He has quite a bit of emotional intelligence and maturity, right? That was established a long time ago, right from the beginning, right from episode 1, essentially. Much like how things were established for Gabby from episode 1. You see that he starts to put things together, right? As Kaya said, I think he was in love with her. And this is in relation to Niccolo and Sasha, right? The gears start spinning. And then down in the cellar, he immediately clocks that indeed the soldier Gabby killed is the individual Chef Niccolo cared for, right? And also Mr. Browse's daughter. And, in that sense, both Gabby and Falco have now seen that they've seen firsthand just how much a Marlene was in love with an Eldian and how much he cared for her, right? And how much her loss or her death has affected this Marlene, right? So it's even that is important for both of them to see, right? Yeah, in that cellar, he picked up on all the signs and he tried his best to get Gabby to kind of stop talking, get off from this topic. But of course, protective and selfless, Falco jumped in front of the bottle. He gets knocked out, has a substantial head injury, certainly probably has a major concussion at this point. And on top of all of that, he has now ingested some of that tasty spinal fluid, right? This is, man, Falco can't catch a break. Even on that, let's not forget that he took an absolute beatdown on that aircraft, right? As grown-ass men just beat the shit out of these children, right? Now, this takes me back to my episode 1 discussion, right? About how prominent Falco was in that ending, right? That was, again, even the first episode, right? The opening episode of the final season begins with Falco. And yeah, again, that ending prominently features Falco, kind of unmissable, really. And in my episode 1 discussion, I straight up said that I feel like he's destined to become one of the 9. Now, I mean, he's certainly going to turn into a Titan at this point, but it's going to be a pure Titan, right? If Zeke does his thing, right? But surely, I mean, after that, after how they've set him up and, being in that ending and the imagery of that ending, I can't see his arc end with him just turning into a pure Titan and then just being cut down, right? I just can't see that. Given the fact that they've also set him up as like the heart of this final season, right? Now, here's the stumbling block to that theory from episode 1 that he is destined to become one of the 9. You have to eat a Titan shifter to become one of the 9, to take it on from another Titan shifter. Now, I do think it might come down to the timing of this, right? And timing of the Marley squad. Because the one possibility that immediately comes to mind is that if the Marley squad can get here, right, in time, or, I mean, Peak is here, they confirmed as much, and she's actually close by. So if the rest of them are here, or are about to get here, I could potentially see Reiner giving himself up to Falco, right, a Falco Pure Titan, once again, if Zeke does his thing. I could see Reiner making that choice, right? Making that decision. I could see Reiner make that executive decision, right? If Zeke ends up doing his thing. Could that be Reiner's final move, right? To sacrifice himself, or, not really sacrifice, because he planned on giving it up regardless, right? He was ready to, die at one point. But now he's living on, or he's staying strong for these children, right? So protecting these children and, saving them and, rescuing them is certainly his goal, right? He doesn't care about Marley, right? Or their crusade. He wants to go back to rescue them. But again, all of that depends on the timing, because I also think that Reiner is going to play a part in the final conflict, that he is going to come across his eternal rival, Eren Yeager, once again. Right? In some capacity, they are going to meet each other. I mean, Eren seemed quite sure of that, actually, right? That him and Reiner are going to meet again as Mikasa swings out of there, right? As Mikasa takes him and swings out of there in episode 8, right? I believe he says, "See you later, Reiner," right? So now it's gone from Nile potentially turning into pure Titan to possibly Pixis and Falco turning into pure Titans as well. So there's a lot at stake now. Right? It's not going to be just red shirts turning into Titans, pure Titans, or it's not just red shirts that are potentially going to turn into Titans. Yeah, this has a lot of endgame feelings, doesn't it? Right? That the story is progressing towards its conclusion at this point. A lot is at stake at this point in time. Right then, that's episode 13. If you enjoy that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you're interested in early access to the next episode right now, or perhaps even full length for this episode, check out the Patreon page. It's only an option for anyone who's interested in content beyond the scheduled content. So if you're interested, check out the link in the description, or check out the link in the pinned comment. Once again, a quick reminder, there is going to be a break, a channel break, 7 to 8 days. So yeah, definitely check out the pinned comment. I should have something there by the time this goes up on YouTube. And I believe it is going to ensure, another solid 5 months and beyond. And also there is going to be new content on the channel in April, so keep an eye out for that. So that's about it for this one, episode 13. So thank you for joining me once again. I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for your time. So until next time, take it easy.